Born Celeste Dupont in a small Louisiana town, the woman who would later become Madame Celeste grew up surrounded by poverty and superstition. Her mother, Yvette, was a practitioner of voodoo, while her father, Jean-Paul, was a charming con artist who came and went from their lives. From an early age, Celeste learned the art of reading people, picking up on subtle cues and body language that would later serve her well in her chosen career. Often left to her own devices as a child, she spent hours exploring the bayou and listening to the stories of local elders. She was particularly fascinated by tales of the supernatural, soaking up every bit of folklore and mysticism she could find. During this time, Celeste began claiming to have visions, describing vivid dreams that seemed to predict future events. As she entered her teenage years, her natural beauty and emerging abilities made her the subject of much gossip. She started holding seances for her classmates, charging small fees for her services. It was during one of these sessions that she met Thomas, a charismatic drifter who quickly recognized her talent for deception. Together, they embarked on a series of small-time cons across the South, posing as faith healers and fortune tellers. Their partnership, both romantic and professional, lasted several years until a scam went awry. Thomas was arrested, but Celeste managed to avoid capture. It was then that she decided to reinvent herself, dyeing her hair and adopting the persona of Madame Celeste, the mysterious psychic from Europe. With this new identity, Celeste traveled from town to town, refining her skills and building a reputation. She learned the art of cold reading, manipulating emotions, and exploiting the grief and desperation of her clients. Her cons grew more elaborate and her fees more exorbitant. It was in Aviara Cove that Madame Celeste set up her most ambitious operation yet. Little did she know that her pursuit of true supernatural power would lead her down a path of no return, culminating in a crime that would shake the foundations of her carefully constructed world. Robert and Elizabeth Warren were the epitome of old money and social grace. Their sprawling estate on the outskirts of Aviara Cove was a testament to generations of wealth accumulated through shrewd investments and inherited fortune. Robert, in his early 60s, had made a name for himself in the world of finance, while Elizabeth was known for her philanthropic efforts and impeccable taste. Themerins had moved to Aviara Cove 5 years ago, seeking a quieter life away from the bustle of New York City. They quickly became pillars of the community, hosting lavish charity galas and contributing generously to local causes. Their fairy tale romance and seemingly perfect life were the envy of many in town. However, beneath the polished exterior lay a web of secrets and unfulfilled desires. Robert, despite his business acumen, harbored a deep-seated fear of losing everything he had worked for. This paranoia led him to make increasingly risky investments, seeking to multiply his wealth to ensure his legacy. Elizabeth, on the other hand, struggled with the loss of her twin sister in a car accident years ago, an event that left her with a profound sense of guilt and a desperate need for closure. It was Elizabeth who first heard of Madame Celeste through the town's gossip mill. Initially skeptical, she found herself drawn to the idea of communicating with her lost sister. Robert, ever the pragmatist, dismissed the notion of psychics and mediums as nonsense, but as he watched his wife sink deeper into melancholy, he reluctantly agreed to accompany her to a session with the renowned psychic. The more his decision to seek out Madame Celeste would prove to be fateful. Their wealth combined with their emotional vulnerabilities made them the perfect marks for the cunning psychic. As they made there for their first appointment, neither Robert nor Elizabeth could have imagined the dark turn their lives were about to take. They were about to step into a world where their deepest fears and most fervent hopes would be used against them, setting in motion a chain of events that would end in bloodshed and horror. The first meeting between Madame Celeste and the Morays took place on a crisp autumn evening. As the couple entered the dimly lit parlor, they were immediately enveloped by the heady scent of incense and the soft glow of candles. Madame Celeste, resplendent in a deep purple gown adorned with silver stars, greeted them with a knowing smile that seemed to pierce their very souls. Elizabeth, her eyes wide with a mix of hope and trepidation, spoke first. "Madame Celeste, I've heard so much about you and we hope you can help us." The psychic's gaze lingered on Elizabeth, noting the slight tremor in her voice and the way she clutched her husband's arm. Without missing a beat, Madame Celeste responded, "The spirits have been expecting you, my dear. I sense a great loss in your past, a piece of yourself torn away." Elizabeth gasped, her grip on Robert tightening. Robert, meanwhile, remained stoic, his skepticism evident in the tight set of his jaw. Madame Celeste turned her attention to him, her voice taking on a more authoritative tone. "And you, sir, carry the weight of many responsibilities. The future weighs heavily on your mind." Over the next hour, Madame Celeste wove a tapestry of half-truths and educated guesses, expertly reading the couple's reactions and tailoring her revelations to their responses. She spoke of Elizabeth's sister, describing her with just enough accuracy to be convincing, and hinted at messages from beyond the veil. For Robert, she alluded to business opportunities and potential pitfalls, her vague prophecies playing into his financial anxieties. By the end of the session, Elizabeth was in tears, feeling a connection to her lost sister that she hadn't experienced in years. Even Robert, despite his initial skepticism, found himself unsettled by the accuracy of some of Madame Celeste's insights. As they left, both agreed to return for further consultations. Over the next few weeks, the Morans became regular visitors. Madame Celeste carefully cultivated their trust, each session revealing just enough to keep them coming back for more. She began to suggest more elaborate rituals and expensive offerings to enhance their connection to the spirit world. For Elizabeth, these sessions became a lifeline, a way to assuage her guilt and find peace. Robert, while still harboring doubts, couldn't deny the positive change in his wife's demeanor. Slowly but surely, Madame Celeste was weaving her web around the wealthy couple, drawing them deeper into her world of shadows and secrets. Little did the Morans know that with each visit, they were inching closer to a fate far darker than they could have ever imagined. Madame Celeste's demands became more extravagant with each passing day. She insisted on rare crystals and precious metals for energy focus, exotic herbs and incense for purification, and even suggested that the Morans donate significant sums to various charitable causes to curry favor with the spirits. In reality, these donations were funneled into offshore accounts controlled by Celeste herself. The psychic's manipulation extended beyond mere financial exploitation. She began to insinuate herself into every aspect of the Morans' lives. Late-night phone calls became common, with Celeste claiming to have urgent messages from the beyond. She advised Robert on business decisions, conveniently aligning her visions with her own financial interests. For Elizabeth, she became a confidant, slowly isolating her from friends and family under the guise of spiritual protection. As her influence grew, so did Madame Celeste's obsession with the occult. The rituals she performed for the Morans became darker, incorporating elements of blood magic and sacrificial rites. She spoke of ancient powers and forbidden knowledge, her eyes gleaming with a fervor that bordered on madness. The Morans, too deep in her thrall to see the danger, followed her lead without question. Behind closed doors, Celeste pored over arcane texts, convinced that she was on the brink of unlocking true supernatural power. Her sessions with other clients became perfunctory, her focus entirely on the Morans and the potential they represented. In her twisted mind, their wealth and willingness to follow her every command made them the perfect vessels for a grand ritual she was planning. As her plans took shape, Madame Celeste began to lay the groundwork for her ultimate con. She spoke to the Morans of a great awakening that would require them to sever all ties with their old life. Under her guidance, they began to liquidate assets and make preparations to transfer large sums of money. Robert, his business acumen clouded by Celeste's influence, failed to see the red flags that would have been obvious in any other circumstance. Elizabeth, lost in her grief and the promise of eternal connection with her sister, was willing to go to any lengths Madame Celeste suggested. The stage was set for a tragedy of epic proportions. Madame Celeste, her grip on reality slipping with each passing day, had convinced herself that the murder of the Morass would be the key to unlocking limitless power. She meticulously planned every detail, from the ritual site to the method of disposing of the bodies. As the night of the Great Awakening approached, an air of anticipation settled. The Morans, unaware of the fate that awaited them, prepared for what they believed would be a spiritual rebirth. At precisely midnight, the Morans arrived, dressed in the white robes Celeste had provided. Their eyes shone with a mixture of excitement and trepidation as they followed the psychic through the house and into the backyard. Robert clutched a briefcase containing documents for the transfer of their wealth, a necessary step for spiritual unburdening, as Celeste had explained. As they entered the clearing, Elizabeth gasped at the elaborate setup. A large pentagram had been drawn on the ground with what appeared to be ash, surrounded by flickering candles and strange symbols. At its center stood the altar, adorned with crystals, feathers, and a large silver chalice. Madame Celeste began the ritual, her voice rising and falling in a hypnotic chant. The words, a mix of Latin and gibberish, washed over the Morans, lulling them into a trance-like state. As the chanting intensified, Celeste instructed the couple to lie down within the pentagram, their heads toward the altar. With practiced movements, she bound their wrists and ankles with silk cords, explaining that it was to anchor their spirits during the transition. The Morans offered no resistance, their minds clouded by the intoxicating blend of incense and blind faith. As the ritual reached its climax, Madame Celeste's demeanor changed. The mask of the benevolent spiritual guide slipped away, revealing the cold, calculating eyes of a killer. From beneath the altar, she retrieved an ornate dagger, its blade glinting in the moonlight. Elizabeth was the first to realize something was terribly wrong. She began to struggle against her bonds, her voice rising in panic. Robert, shaken from his stupor by his wife's cries, demanded to know what was happening. But it was too late. With swift, brutal efficiency, Madame Celeste plunged the dagger into Elizabeth's chest. The woman's scream was cut short as blood bubbled from her lips. Robert roared in anguish and fury, thrashing wildly against his restraints. Celeste turned to him, her face spattered with his wife's blood, and brought the dagger down again and again. In the ensuing silence, broken only by the gurgling of the dying couple, Madame Celeste began to collect their blood in the silver chalice. Her movements were methodical, almost reverent as she muttered incantations under her breath. She truly believed that this act of supreme sacrifice would grant her the power she had long sought. As life ebbed from the Morans, Madame Celeste completed her grisly task. She dipped her fingers in the blood-filled chalice and began to draw symbols on her own skin, her eyes wild with a terrible ecstasy. In her madness, she failed to notice the faint sound of sirens in the distance. The ritual concluded. Celeste stood over the bodies of her victims, arms outstretched waiting for the rush of power she was certain would come. But as the minutes ticked by, all she felt was a growing sense of panic and the cold realization of what she had done. With trembling hands, she began the process of cleaning up the crime scene. She had planned for this, but the reality of disposing of two bodies was far more daunting than she had anticipated. As she dragged the corpses towards a pre-dug grave deeper in the woods, her mind raced with plans to secure the Morans' wealth and flee Aviara Cove. In the pale light of dawn, Madame Celeste surveyed the scene of her gruesome crime. The once pristine clearing was now a tableau of horror, with blood-soaked earth and the lingering stench of death. She had managed to bury the bodies of Robert and Elizabeth Moran in the deep grave she had prepared, but evidence of the murder still littered the area. With a growing sense of panic, Celeste began the painstaking process of erasing all traces of the night's events. She gathered the blood-stained robes, the ritual implements, and the now empty chalice, stuffing them into heavy garbage bags. The pentagram was scuffed out, leaves and branches scattered over the disturbed earth. As she worked, Celeste's mind raced. She needed to establish an alibi to create a narrative that would explain the Morans' sudden disappearance. Rushing back to the house, she showered, scrubbing away every speck of blood and dirt. She then set about creating a paper trail, forging emails and documents that suggested the couple had been planning a secret getaway. Using the information she had gleaned from her sessions with the Morans, Celeste began the complex process of accessing their accounts. She had coerced them into sharing passwords and account details under the guise of spiritual unburdening. Now those same details would allow her to siphon off their considerable wealth. As morning turned to afternoon, Celeste made a series of calls. To the Moran's housekeeper, she explained that the couple had left for an emergency business trip. To their few close friends, she expressed concern that she hadn't heard from them since their last session. She even went so far as to call the local police, reporting that the Morans had missed an important appointment and weren't answering their phones. But even as she wove her web of lies, Celeste could feel it all unraveling. The hasty cleanup of the crime scene, the rushed cover-up, it all felt inadequate. She hadn't anticipated the overwhelming guilt and fear that now consumed her. Every car that drove past the house, every unexpected noise made her jump. As evening approached, a knock at the door sent Celeste into a panic. It was Detective Malika Collins responding to the missing persons report Celeste herself had filed. The psychic invited her in, forcing a calm demeanor as she recounted her concerns about the Morans. Detective Collins listened intently, her keen eyes taking in every detail of Celeste's home and behavior. She asked pointed questions about the couple's last known whereabouts and their relationship with Celeste. Though the psychic maintained her composure, she could sense the detective's suspicion. As Collins left, promising to keep Celeste informed of any developments, the full weight of what she had done came crashing down on the self-proclaimed psychic. She realized that her pursuit of power and wealth had led her down a path from which there was no return. The once confident Madame Celeste was now a woman on the edge, waiting for the inevitable moment when her crimes would be discovered. Detective Malika Collins had been with the Aviara Cove Police Department for 15 years, and something about the Moran disappearance case didn't sit right with her from the start. Her instincts, honed by years on the force, told her that Madame Celeste knew more than she was letting on. In the days following her initial visit, Collins dove deep into the investigation. She interviewed the Moran's friends, colleagues, and household staff. A pattern quickly emerged. In the months leading up to their disappearance, the couple had become increasingly isolated, their behavior erratic and secretive. Collins' attention focused on their connection to Madame Celeste. She discovered that large sums of money had been flowing from the Mora's accounts to various shell companies and offshore banks. When she traced these transactions, she found a complex web of financial maneuvers that all seemed to lead back to the psychic. Intrigued by Celeste's background, Collins began to dig into her past. She uncovered a trail of complaints and suspicions spanning several states, all related to psychic fraud and con artistry. The detective realized she was dealing with a sophisticated criminal, one who had managed to stay one step ahead of the law for years. As Collins delved deeper, she started interviewing Celeste's other clients. Many spoke of the psychic with reverence, but a few shared stories of feeling manipulated and pressured to part with large sums of money. One client, an elderly widow, tearfully recounted how Celeste had tried to convince her to sell her home and invest the proceeds in a spiritual cleansing ritual. The detective's suspicions grew when forensic analysis of the Moran's computer revealed deleted emails discussing a Great Awakening ritual with Madame Celeste. The language used was cryptic, but it was clear that the couple had been planning something significant for the night they vanished. Armed with this information, Collins obtained a warrant to search her property. As her team combed through Celeste's home in the woods behind it, the detective couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the verge of uncovering something terrible. Little did she know that buried deep in those woods lay the gruesome truth of what had really happened to Robert and Elizabeth Moran. The search of Madame Celeste's property yielded a treasure trove of evidence. Hidden in a false bottom of her antique writing desk, detectives discovered a journal detailing her deepening obsession with the occult and her plans for the Morans. The basement revealed a makeshift laboratory where she had been experimenting with various hallucinogenic compounds, likely used to enhance her clients' spiritual experiences. But it was the discovery in the woods that broke the case wide open. A cadaver dog, brought in to search the expansive property, alerted to a spot deep in the forest. As police excavated the area, they unearthed the badly decomposed bodies of Robert and Elizabeth Warren. Detective Collins, watching as the bodies were exhumed, felt a mix of vindication and horror. Her instincts had been right, but the truth was far more gruesome than she had imagined. Forensic analysis would later reveal traces of the ritual, including remnants of candle wax and unfamiliar herbs on the victim's remains. With this damning evidence in hand, Collins moved to arrest Madame Celeste, but the psychic, perhaps foreseeing the net closing around her, had fled. As the search for Celeste continued, Collins pieced together the full extent of her crimes. Financial records showed that she had managed to transfer $1 million from the Moran's accounts in the days following their murder. Interviews with other clients revealed a pattern of exploitation going back years. The detective also uncovered Celeste's true identity as Celeste Dupont, connecting her to unsolved cases of fraud and theft across multiple states. It became clear that the Moran murders were the culmination of a lifetime of increasingly bold and dangerous cons. Law enforcement tracked Celeste to a remote cabin in the Adirondacks. As police surrounded the property, Celeste attempted to flee into the woods. In a tense standoff, Collins confronted the self-proclaimed psychic, who was now a shell of her former confident self. "Madame Celeste, or Celeste Dupont, your crimes have caught up with you," Collins called out. "There's nowhere left to run." For a moment, it seemed Celeste might try to fight or flee, but then, as if all the fight had left her at once, she sank to her knees in the damp forest floor. As Collins approached to make the arrest, Celeste looked up. Her eyes were filled with a mixture of defeat and something more, an unsettling madness that sent chills down the detective's spine. Prosecutors presented a mountain of evidence, ranging from financial records that showed the systematic draining of the Moran's accounts to the chilling contents of Celeste's personal journals. Forensic experts detailed the brutal nature of the murders, while psychologists worked to unravel the complexities of the defendant's psyche. Perhaps the most damning testimony came from Thomas, Celeste's former partner. He offered insight into her early cons and the evolution of her tactics, painting a picture of a woman whose greed and delusions of grandeur had spiraled into madness. Celeste's defense team argued that she was not of sound mind, presenting evidence of her deep-seated belief in the occult and her conviction that the murders were part of a genuine ritual. They portrayed her as a victim of her own delusions, manipulated by the very forces she believed she was channeling. But as the trial wore on, it became clear that Celeste's apparent madness was intertwined with a calculating intelligence. After weeks of testimony and deliberation, the jury returned a guilty verdict on all counts. The judge, citing the heinous nature of the crimes and Celeste's lack of genuine remorse, sentenced her to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Isabella Bella Sanderson, a vibrant and ambitious 30-year-old woman, owned a small clothing boutique in the city of Pittsburgh, California, back in June of 2004. Her boutique, Bella's Boutique, was a hidden gem in the local fashion scene. With impeccable taste and a fierce sense of independence, Bella became a captivating figure in the community. As the summer of 2004 unfolded, Bella's life was filled with dreams and aspirations, always envisioning a future full of success and adventure. Despite being 4 months pregnant, Bella remained determined to make her boutique thrive. Friends and family admired her unapologetic confidence, unaware that it would eventually lead to her untimely demise. Adding to the tension, Bella's mother-in-law, Sophia, harbored deep resentment toward her. Known for her controlling nature, Sophia saw Bella's independence as a threat to the family's legacy and was determined to remove her from their lives. On that fateful night in June, Bella's life took a tragic turn. The details surrounding her murder were both chilling and perplexing. The investigation into her death would uncover a series of shocking revelations, revealing dark secrets lurking beneath the surface of this seemingly peaceful suburban community. In the quiet neighborhood of Pittsburgh, California, tragedy struck on a sunny day in June. Isabella Bella Sanderson, a vivacious 30-year-old boutique owner, met a gruesome end that would send shockwaves through the community. Bella was known for her impeccable taste and fierce independence. Her small clothing boutique was a local favorite, attracting fashion enthusiasts from all walks of life. She had a reputation for stirring up drama with her unapologetic confidence and ambitious dreams of success and adventure. At the time of her death, Bella was 4 months pregnant, which added an even more heartbreaking layer to the already devastating story. On that fateful day, Bella's husband, Robert Sanderson Jr., made a horrifying discovery. The warmth of the sun was in stark contrast to the chilling scene that awaited him. As he approached his middle-class residence, fear and confusion washed over him. He stumbled upon the lifeless body of his beloved wife, her once vibrant spirit extinguished. The shock of the discovery was palpable. Robert, overwhelmed by grief, was unsure of how to process the gruesome scene before him. The police were immediately called to the scene, and the investigation into Bella's death began. In June of 2004, media outlets were quick to pick up on the tragedy. Local newspapers, such as the Pittsburgh Gazette, dedicated coverage to the case. Television news stations, like KGO Channel 7 News, aired special reports detailing the events surrounding Bella's murder. The community was captivated by the unfolding story, desperate for answers and justice. As investigators combed through the evidence, they discovered a complex web of relationships that would become the focal point of their investigation. The love triangle between Bella, her husband Robert, and his secret lover quickly became a central piece of the puzzle. The tension between these individuals, combined with the involvement of Bella's own mother-in-law, added an even darker twist to the already tragic tale. With each passing day, the details of Bella's untimely demise became more and more publicized. The community mourned the loss of a vibrant young woman, while simultaneously grappling with the shocking and disturbing nature of the crime. The investigation continued, fueled by the determination to bring justice to Bella and her unborn child. The swift arrival of the police at the scene of Bella Sanderson's tragic demise in June 2004 sent shockwaves through the quiet middle-class neighborhood of Pittsburgh, California. Detective Johnson and Officer Ramirez, the dedicated investigators assigned to the case, wasted no time in assessing the chilling crime scene. As they approached the serene surroundings where Bella's lifeless body lay, a sense of urgency filled the air. The investigators were met with a gruesome sight. Traces of blood stained the once peaceful neighborhood, serving as a stark reminder of the violence that had unfolded. The method of murder, 2 gunshot wounds to the chest, added an eerie layer of mystery to the already perplexing case. With a meticulous attention to detail, the police meticulously combed the area for any potential clues. Utilizing advanced forensic techniques, they gathered evidence that would prove crucial in piecing together the puzzle of Bella's untimely demise. Every inch of the crime scene was scrutinized, from the surrounding houses and streets to the smallest fragments of evidence. Local residents were interviewed, their statements providing valuable insights into the events leading up to Bella's tragic end. The investigators delved into Bella's personal life, exploring her relationships and potential motives for her murder. Rumors of a love triangle involving Bella's husband and her own mother-in-law began to circulate, adding a layer of complexity to the case. As the investigation progressed, the media frenzy surrounding the case intensified. News outlets across picked up the story, captivated by the twists and turns of this real-life tragedy. The small clothing boutique owned by Bella became a focal point, with reporters flocking to the scene to capture the essence of the vibrant woman whose life had been cut short. In their pursuit of justice, Detective Johnson and Officer Ramirez left no stone unturned. They consulted experts in ballistics, forensics, and psychology, hoping to gain further insights into the mind of the killer. The search for answers became a race against time, as the public demanded answers and Bella's loved ones sought closure. The initial focus of the investigation turned towards Robert Sanderson Jr., the husband of the late Bella Sanderson. Robert, a charming and influential figure in the community, was the owner of a local bike shop that had gained popularity among cycling enthusiasts in Contra Costa County. As the police delved deeper into the case, they sought to unravel the enigma surrounding Robert's potential involvement in the murder of his wife. Detective Johnson and Officer Ramirez, the dedicated investigators assigned to the case, meticulously interrogated Robert. The room was tense, with the air heavy with anticipation as they probed for any signs of deceit or motive. Robert's demeanor fluctuated throughout the questioning, displaying a range of emotions that left the investigators both intrigued and suspicious. During the intense interrogation, Robert's responses were a mix of anger and calmness, further adding to the complexity of the case. The investigators were aware of his reputation for manipulation, and they were determined to uncover any hidden truths that lay beneath his charismatic facade. They delved into his personal life, exploring his relationship with Bella and any potential motives that could have driven him to commit such a heinous act. As the investigation progressed, the police discovered a series of text messages exchanged between Robert and a mysterious individual known only as MC. The messages hinted at a clandestine affair, raising questions about the nature of Robert's relationship with Marco Castretti, a regular at the bike shop. Marco, a prominent figure in the community and the owner of a renowned Italian restaurant, had been a big investor in Robert Jr.'s bike shop. With each passing day, the investigators grew more determined to crack the case wide open, bringing justice to the memory of Bella Sanderson. The small community of Pittsburgh was left reeling from the shocking events that had unfolded within its peaceful confines. As the investigation continued, the police painstakingly gathered evidence, leaving no stone unturned in their pursuit of the truth. Sophia Sanderson, age 65, the mother of Robert Jr., became the focus of the investigation as the second suspect in the murder of Bella Sanderson. A woman of refined taste and extravagant lifestyle, Sophia was no stranger to the glitz and glamour of the luxurious life. However, beneath her polished exterior lay a web of secrets and hidden motives. As the police delved into Sophia's connections to the crime, they discovered a tangled web of financial strain. Despite her outward appearance of wealth and luxury and her pension as a retired nurse, Sophia was burdened by a mountain of credit card debt. Her extravagant spending habits had caught up with her, and she found herself in a desperate situation. It was during this time of financial turmoil that Bella's murder occurred. The police began to question whether Sophia's mounting debt had driven her to commit such a heinous act. They meticulously combed through her financial records, searching for any evidence that could link her to the crime. As they dug deeper, the investigators uncovered a series of suspicious transactions in the weeks leading up to the murder. Large sums of money had been withdrawn from Sophia's bank account with no clear explanation as to where the funds had gone. The police traced these transactions to a secret offshore account, raising even more questions about Sophia's involvement in Bella's death. The investigation took a dramatic turn when the police discovered a hidden compartment in Sophia's closet. Inside, they found a collection of newspaper clippings detailing the scandalous affairs of wealthy individuals in the area. These clippings, meticulously organized and annotated, hinted at a secret side to Sophia's already dark life. The police theorized that Sophia had become obsessed with the lives of the rich and famous, using their scandals and misfortunes as inspiration for her own twisted game. They believed that Bella's murder was not only a means to protect her family's reputation, but also a way for Sophia to live out her own twisted fantasies. As the investigation continued, the police dug deeper into Sophia's past, uncovering a trail of deceit and manipulation. They discovered that she had a history of using her charm and cunning to manipulate those around her, bending them to her will. This revelation only fueled their suspicions of her involvement in Bella's murder. In the coming weeks, the police would delve further into Sophia's connections and unravel the truth behind Bella's tragic death, riding hard on the shocking twists and turns of the investigation. As the investigation into the tragic murder of Bella Sanderson intensified, the authorities meticulously combed through the evidence determined to uncover the truth behind this heinous crime. Every detail, no matter how seemingly insignificant, was scrutinized in their pursuit of justice. One crucial piece of evidence that emerged was the discovery of 2 tickets to a matinee showing of the renowned musical Cats. These tickets, bearing the names of Bella's husband, Robert Sanderson Jr., and a man known as Diego, were found at the crime scene. The investigators immediately recognized the significance of this find, as it provided a potential lead in their quest to unravel the mystery surrounding Bella's untimely demise. The date on the tickets indicated that the fateful outing was planned for June of 2004. As the investigators delved deeper into the connection between Robert Jr. and Diego, they discovered that Diego was the older brother of Bella. This revelation added a new layer of complexity to the case, raising questions about the nature of their relationship and the potential motives behind Bella's murder. Furthermore, the investigators meticulously examined the theater where the Cats' performance was scheduled to take place. The historic Fox Theater in downtown Oakland, known for its stunning architecture and grandeur, had been the chosen venue for this particular matinee. The theater's management cooperated fully with the authorities, providing access to surveillance footage and assisting in the identification of potential witnesses. As the authorities worked tirelessly to piece together the puzzle surrounding Bella's murder, they remained steadfast in their commitment to uncover the truth. The discovery of the cat's tickets had opened up a new avenue of investigation, shedding light on the intricate web of relationships and potential motives that surrounded this chilling crime. Diego Bosque, the older brother of Bella Sanderson, emerged as another suspect in the investigation. Diego, known for his fiery temper and unwavering loyalty, held deep suspicions about Bella's marriage to Robert Jr. and harbored a strong disdain for Sophia. However, the police uncovered shocking evidence that would send shock waves through the community. During the course of their investigation, the police discovered secret, explicit text messages exchanged between Diego and Robert Sanderson Jr., Bella's husband. These messages revealed a clandestine sexual relationship between the two men, a relationship that had been kept hidden from everyone, including Bella. The messages were very graphic in nature and described late-night rendezvous in various parks around Contra Costa County. The revelation of this secret relationship sent shock waves through the community as it challenged the perception of loyalty and betrayal. Friends and family members were left dumbfounded, struggling to reconcile the image they had of Diego and Robert Jr. with the shocking reality that had been uncovered. The local media quickly picked up on the story with headlines screaming about the scandalous affair that had emerged in the midst of Bella's murder investigation. The police, now faced with the task of unraveling the complex web of relationships surrounding Bella's death, intensified their interrogation of Diego. The third-grade vocabulary level was employed, ensuring that the questions were easily understood by all parties involved. Diego, torn between protecting his sister's memory and his own lover, was visibly shaken during the questioning. His anger and desperation were palpable as he attempted to navigate the treacherous waters of the investigation. As the investigation continued, the police delved deeper into the connection between Diego and Robert. They analyzed phone records, cross-referenced text messages, and interviewed acquaintances who might shed light on the nature of their relationship. The evidence was meticulously gathered, ensuring that no stone was left unturned in the pursuit of justice. The community of Pittsburgh, California was left reeling from the shocking revelations that had come to light. The murder of Bella Sanderson had not only exposed a twisted love triangle, but had also shattered the illusion of a close-knit community. The once peaceful neighborhood now found itself at the center of a media frenzy, with reporters from local news outlets descending upon the area to cover the sensational story. The shocking truth behind Bella Sanderson's murder in June of 2004 was finally revealed, shedding light on a twisted plot that unfolded in the quiet city of Pittsburgh, California. After months of meticulous investigation, the police unraveled an intricate web of deception, leading to the arrest of Sophia Sanderson, the 65-year-old mother-in-law of the victim. Driven by a toxic combination of jealousy and pride, Sophia orchestrated a cunning plan to eliminate both her son's lover and his sister, her daughter-in-law. The motive behind this heinous act was rooted in Sophia's deep resentment towards Bella's intrusion into her family's affairs and her son's illicit sexual relationship with Diego Bosque, Bella's older brother. Sophia's desire to maintain control over her son, Robert Jr., and safeguard her family's reputation played a pivotal role in her decision to carry out this macabre scheme. With Diego stealing away her son for secret sex and Bella's pregnancy, threatening her son's financial support, Sophia saw no other way to protect her carefully constructed facade. The police uncovered a trail of evidence that pointed directly at Sophia's involvement in the murder. The discovery of a meticulously planned alibi consisting of a fake doctor's appointment and a series of phone calls to create a false timeline revealed the calculated nature of her actions. Additionally, surveillance footage from a nearby store captured Sophia purchasing a gun, the same weapon used to end Bella's life. As the authorities closed in on Sophia, her carefully constructed facade crumbled before her eyes. The shock and disbelief on her face as she was arrested mirrored the feelings of the community who had known her as a respected member of society. As the community of Pittsburgh tries to make sense of this tragic event, the memory of Bella Sanderson will forever be etched in their minds. Her vibrant spirit and ambitious dreams will serve as a reminder of the fragility of life and the darkness that can lurk within the hearts of those closest to us. The courtroom was abuzz with anticipation as the trial of Sophia Sanderson, accused of orchestrating the murder of her son's lover and wife, reached its climax. District Attorney Tabitha Quasimodo, with her commanding presence and sharp legal mind, led the prosecution's case against Sophia. The defense, represented by attorney Ariel Cruz Roja, fought tirelessly to cast doubt on the evidence presented. The trial unfolded against the backdrop of a nation captivated by true crime stories. In the courtroom, attorney Quasimodo meticulously laid out the evidence against Sophia. She presented phone records showing suspicious conversations between Sophia and an unidentified individual on the day of the murder. The prosecution also introduced the murder weapon, a .45 caliber handgun, which was traced back to Sophia's possession. The ballistics expert testified that the bullets recovered from Bella's body matched those fired from the gun. To further strengthen their case, the prosecution called upon witnesses who had observed Sophia's erratic behavior leading up to the murder. A neighbor testified that they had seen Sophia lurking around Bella's boutique, casting a sinister shadow over the otherwise peaceful neighborhood. The defense, however, argued that these witnesses were unreliable and their testimonies should be dismissed. As the trial progressed, the courtroom was filled with tension and emotion. Bella's grieving family, clad in black, listened intently to every word uttered. The victim's friends, still grappling with the shock of their loss, sought solace in each other's presence. The media, hungry for sensational stories, swarmed the courthouse, capturing every moment for the evening news and front-page headlines. After weeks of testimony and deliberation, the jury reached a verdict. Sophia Sanderson was found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The courtroom erupted in a mix of relief, sorrow, and closure. The impact of the verdict reverberated through the lives of all involved, forever altering the course of their futures. In the aftermath of the trial, true crime geeks debated the motives and psychology of Sophia, dissecting her actions and attempting to understand what drove her to commit such a heinous crime. The story of Bella Sanderson's murder became a cautionary tale, a reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath even the most seemingly idyllic lives. Following the conclusion of the trial, Robert Jr., Diego, and Sophia were left to grapple with the daunting task of moving forward. The events surrounding Bella's murder had irrevocably changed their lives, forcing them to navigate a complex web of emotions and rebuild their shattered worlds. Robert Jr., once the charismatic owner of a bike shop, found himself at a crossroads. The trial had unearthed the dark secrets of his past, including his illicit relationship with Diego. The revelation left him questioning his own sexuality and grappling with the consequences of his actions. With his reputation tarnished and his business struggling, Robert Jr. faced an uphill battle to regain the trust of his community. Diego, Bella's older brother, was consumed by guilt and remorse. His secret relationship with Robert not only betrayed his sister but also implicated him in the murder plot. The trial had exposed his deepest secrets, leaving him isolated and ostracized by a family that could not accept his sexuality. With no one to turn to, Diego sought solace in therapy and support groups, working tirelessly to rebuild his life and find a sense of redemption. Sophia, the mastermind behind the murder plot, faced the harsh consequences of her actions. The trial had shattered her carefully constructed facade, revealing her as a manipulative and calculating individual. Her once lavish lifestyle had crumbled under the weight of her debts, leaving her imprisoned and without anyone left to protect her. As she retreated into a life of isolation and regret, Sophia faced the reality of her choices. As the months turned into years, the wounds left by Bella's murder began to slowly heal. The victims' families, torn apart by grief, found comfort in support groups and counseling. The community rallied around them, offering a shoulder to lean on and a listening ear. Over time, life in Pittsburgh began to return to a semblance of normalcy, though the scars of that fateful tragedy would never fully fade. In the quiet town of Riverwood, the Matthews family was well known and well liked. John Matthews, a charismatic businessman, his wife Jane, a dedicated nurse, and Jane's teenage daughter, Ava, painted the picture of suburban bliss. However, behind closed doors, shadows of deceit and betrayal lurked. One fateful night, Ava was found dead in her bedroom, and the town's illusion of peace was shattered. Detective David Hunter, a seasoned investigator with a reputation for solving the toughest cases, was called to the scene. As he surveyed the Matthews home, he could sense the undercurrent of tension. Initial reports pointed to a domestic dispute gone tragically wrong, but Hunter's instincts told him there was more to the story. Jane was found crumpled on the floor, wailing inconsolably as she clung to her daughter's lifeless body. John's face was a mask of shock and grief, but something about his demeanor struck Hunter as off. In the days that followed, the investigation would unravel a web of lies, betrayal, and ultimately murder. Detective Hunter arrived at the Matthews residence on a chilly autumn evening. The house, a modest two-story home with a well-manicured lawn, stood eerily silent. Inside, the once warm and inviting living room was now a flurry of activity, with uniformed officers and forensic technicians meticulously combing through the scene. Ava's room was at the end of a narrow hallway on the second floor. The door was ajar, and a pool of blood stained the beige carpet just inside the threshold. Ava lay sprawled on her bed, her eyes staring blankly at the ceiling. Her throat had been slashed, a brutal end to a young life filled with promise. Hunter's gaze moved around the room, noting the signs of a struggle. The nightstand was overturned, and a lamp lay shattered on the floor. He turned to the forensic officer. "What have we got?" The officer, a young woman named Carla, responded. "It's a mess. No signs of forced entry and no murder weapon yet. Looks like she fought back though." Downstairs, Jane Matthews sat on the couch, her face pale and tear-streaked. John hovered nearby, his arm around her shoulders. Jane's eyes were hollow, and she clung to John as if he were a lifeline. Hunter approached them, his voice gentle but firm. "Mrs. Matthews, can you tell me what happened?" Jane's voice trembled as she spoke. "I came home from work and found her like this. I didn't hear anything. I didn't see anything. How could this happen?" John tightened his grip on her shoulder, his face a mixture of sorrow and anger. "We're gonna find out who did this, Jane. Promise." Hunter studied John's face, noting the intensity in his eyes. He turned to his partner, Officer Johnson, who was taking notes nearby. "Get statements from the neighbors. See if anyone saw or heard anything unusual." As the investigation continued into the night, Hunter's mind raced with questions. Who could have wanted Ava dead? Was it a random act of violence or something more personal? The answers would come, but not without unearthing the dark secrets that lay hidden within the Matthews family. The Matthews family had lived in Riverwood for over a decade. John Matthews, a successful entrepreneur, owned a small chain of hardware stores. His business acumen and charm made him a respected figure in the community. Jane, his wife, was a nurse at the local hospital, known for her kindness and dedication. Eva, Jane's daughter from a previous marriage, was a bright and outgoing teenager, excelling in both academics and extracurricular activities. John and Jane's marriage appeared strong from the outside. They were often seen at community events, always together, always smiling, but behind the facade, their relationship was strained. John was often away on business trips, and Jane's demanding job left little time for family. Ava, caught in the middle, struggled with feelings of abandonment and longing for a stable family life. Ava's relationship with John was complicated. She admired his success and charm, but resented his frequent absences and the way he seemed to dominate her mother's attention. Their interactions were often tense, with Ava pushing back against John's authority. Despite this, she confided in her friends that she wished she could have a closer bond with him. Jane's love for Ava was undeniable, but their relationship was not without its challenges. As Ava entered her teenage years, the typical mother-daughter conflicts arose, exacerbated by Jane's long hours at work. Despite their disagreements, Jane was fiercely protective of Ava, always striving to provide her with the best opportunities. The Matthews neighbors, the Carters, were a significant presence in their lives. Lisa Carter, a vibrant woman with a magnetic personality, often visited Jane. The two women had become close friends, bonding over shared interests and the challenges of raising teenagers. Lisa's husband, Mark, a quiet and reserved man, worked as an accountant and kept mostly to himself. Unbeknownst to Jane, John and Lisa's friendship had crossed boundaries. Their affair began innocently enough with casual conversations and shared drinks. But as John's discontent with his marriage grew, so did his attraction to Lisa. They found solace in each other's company, their clandestine meetings becoming more frequent and more intense. Ava, perceptive and curious, noticed the subtle changes. She saw the stolen glances, the hushed conversations, and the lingering touches. One evening, she followed John to the Carters' house, witnessing the undeniable proof of their affair. Shocked and betrayed, Ava confronted John, demanding he end the affair and tell Jane the truth. John's reaction was swift and violent. Fearful of his secret being exposed, he lashed out at Ava, threatening her to keep quiet. Ava, determined to protect her mother, refused to back down. The tension between them escalated, culminating in the tragic events of that fateful night. The Matthews' seemingly perfect life was built on a foundation of lies and deceit. As Detective Hunter delved deeper into their history, he began to see the cracks in their facade. The truth, he knew, was buried beneath layers of betrayal and anger. It was up to him to uncover it and bring justice to Eva. Detective David Hunter was known for his tenacity and keen instincts. With over 2 decades of experience, he had seen it all, from petty thefts to gruesome homicides. As he stood in the Matthews' living room, he felt the familiar rush of determination. This case was personal. He could feel the weight of it bearing down on him. Hunter began his investigation by interviewing the Matthews neighbors. The Carters were first on his list. Lisa Carter, visibly shaken, recounted her interactions with the Matthews, emphasizing her close friendship with Jane. Mark Carter, on the other hand, seemed distant and evasive, his eyes darting around nervously as he spoke. Lisa admitted that she had seen John more often recently, but she attributed it to their shared social circles. Mark, when pressed, mentioned hearing arguments from the Matthews house, but couldn't provide specific details. Hunter noted the inconsistencies in their statements, his suspicion growing. Back at the precinct, Hunter and his partner, Officer Johnson, reviewed the evidence collected from the crime scene. The lack of forced entry suggested that Ava knew her attacker. The struggle indicated she fought back, which meant the killer likely bore defensive wounds. Hunter decided to focus on the Matthews family dynamics. He arranged an interview with Jane, hoping to gain more insight into her relationship with Ava and John. Jane, still reeling from the shock, struggled to articulate her thoughts. She described Ava as a loving but headstrong teenager, often clashing with John over trivial matters. "Did you notice any changes in John's behavior recently?" Hunter asked, leaning forward. Jane hesitated, then nodded. "He seemed more distant, more stressed. I thought it was work-related. He was traveling a lot and we hardly had time together." Hunter's mind raced. The frequent business trips could be a cover for something else. He needed more information about John's activities and interactions outside the family. The next day, Hunter visited John's office. His colleagues painted a picture of a dedicated but increasingly irritable man. They mentioned his frequent absences and whispered about a possible affair, though no one could provide concrete evidence. Hunter's next stop was the local coffee shop, a popular spot for the neighborhood gossip mill. The barista, a young woman with a penchant for eavesdropping, confirmed seeing John with Lisa Carter on multiple occasions. "They seemed close. Too close for just friends," she said, smirking. As pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place, Hunter's suspicion of John grew. He needed to find solid proof of the affair and connect it to Ava's murder. He decided to confront John directly, hoping to catch him off guard. John, seated in the interrogation room, maintained his composure. He denied any involvement in Ava's death, insisting that he was as devastated as Jane. Hunter pressed him about the affair. Watching for any signs of guilt, John's facade cracked slightly. He admitted to spending time with Lisa, but insisted it was innocent. Hunter wasn't convinced. He could sense that John was hiding something, and he was determined to uncover the truth. As the investigation progressed, Hunter faced mounting pressure to close the case. The community was on edge and the media was relentless, but he knew that rushing to judgment could lead to a miscarriage of justice. He needed to stay focused and methodical, following the evidence wherever it led. Hunter's gut told him that the key to solving the case lay in understanding the true nature of the Matthews family dynamics and the hidden relationships that had turned their lives upside down. He was prepared to dig deep, no matter how uncomfortable the truths he uncovered might be. Jane Matthews sat across from Detective Hunter, her eyes red from days of weeping. She clutched a tissue, twisting it nervously in her hands. The grief and shock of Ava's murder had taken a visible toll on her, but there was a steely determination in her gaze. "Detective Hunter, I need you to understand. I loved my daughter more than anything," she began, her voice trembling. "We had our arguments, yes, but what mother and teenage daughter don't? She was everything to me." Hunter nodded, encouraging her to continue. "Tell me about the night Ava was killed. Where were you and what did you do?" "I was at the hospital working a double shift. One of the nurses called in sick, and I had to cover for her. I left the house around 6 p.m. and didn't get back until after midnight. When I walked in and found Ava," Jane's voice broke, and she took a moment to compose herself. "Did you notice anything unusual when you came home?" Hunter asked gently. Jane shook her head. "No, everything seemed normal. The door was locked, and there were no signs of forced entry. I went straight to Eva's room to check on her, and that's when I found her." Hunter leaned back, considering her words. Jane's alibi seemed solid, and her genuine grief was evident. But there was still the matter of her relationship with Eva, and the tension that had been brewing in their household. "Jane, I've spoken with some of your neighbors and colleagues. They mentioned that Ava and John didn't always get along. Can you tell me more about that?" Jane sighed, wiping away fresh tears. "John tried to be a good stepfather, but Ava resented him. She felt like he was trying to replace her father. They argued often, especially about his long absences and his strict rules." "And what about you and John? How was your relationship?" Hunter probed. "We've had our ups and downs," Jane admitted. "Lately, things have been strained. He was distant, always busy with work. I suspected something was wrong, but I never imagined it would lead to this." As Jane spoke, Hunter noted the raw honesty in her words. She was a mother grieving her child, a wife grappling with the unraveling of her marriage. Despite the initial suspicion, Hunter began to believe that Jane was not involved in Ava's death. But if she wasn't the killer, then who was? The pieces of the puzzle were slowly coming together, but there were still gaps. Hunter needed to dig deeper to uncover the hidden truths that would lead him to Ava's murderer. The answer, he felt, was closer than he had initially thought. As Detective Hunter dug deeper into the Matthews family dynamics, his suspicions about John grew stronger. The rumors of an affair with Lisa Carter had to be verified, and Hunter knew that uncovering this relationship could be the key to solving Ava's murder. Hunter decided to pay another visit to Lisa Carter. She was in her garden, pruning rose bushes when he approached. Her demeanor was calm, but Hunter could see the tension in her eyes. "Lisa, I need to ask you some more questions about your relationship with John Matthews," he began. Lisa's hands trembled slightly as she set down the pruning shears. "What do you want to know?" Hunter pressed on. "There have been rumors that you and John were more than just friends. I need to know if there's any truth to that." Lisa's face paled and she looked away, struggling to find her words. After a long pause, she finally spoke. "Yes, it's true. John and we had an affair. Started about a year ago. We were both unhappy in our marriages, and we found comfort in each other." Hunter nodded, noting her admission. "Did Ava know about the affair?" Lisa's eyes widened in shock. "How did you know?" Hunter leaned in, his voice firm. "It's important, Lisa. Did Ava know?" Lisa nodded slowly. "Yes. She found out a few weeks ago. She saw us together and confronted John. She was furious, threatened to tell Jane. John begged her not to, but she wouldn't listen." Hunter felt a chill run down his spine. The pieces were falling into place. What happened after Ava confronted John? Lisa hesitated, her eyes filling with tears. John was frantic. He tried to reason with Ava, but she was adamant. They argued a lot after that. He told me he was scared of what Ava might do, that she could destroy both our families. Hunter thanked Lisa for her honesty and made his way back to the precinct. He reviewed the evidence once more, focusing on John's behavior and movements. The more he thought about it, the more convinced he became that John had something to do with Ava's murder. Hunter decided it was time to confront John with the new information. He called John into the station for another interview, hoping to catch him off guard. As John sat across from him, Hunter could see the tension in his eyes. "John, I've spoken with Lisa Carter. She confirmed your affair." Hunter began watching John's reaction closely. John's face tightened, but he remained silent. Hunter continued, "Ava found out about the affair, didn't she? She confronted you and threatened to tell Jane." John's composure cracked. He leaned forward, his voice shaking. "Yes, she found out, but I didn't kill her. I loved her like my own daughter. She was angry, but I would never hurt her." Hunter pressed on, his voice relentless. "You were afraid of what she might do. You knew she could ruin everything. What happened that night, John?" John's eyes filled with tears, and he buried his face in his hands. "I didn't mean to hurt her. We argued, she pushed me and I pushed back. She fell and there was blood. Panicked. I didn't know what to do." Hunter felt a mix of relief and sorrow. The truth was finally coming out. "John, you need to tell me everything. We need to know exactly what happened." John took a deep breath and began to recount the events of that night. Ava had confronted him again, demanding that he end the affair and tell Jane the truth. Their argument escalated, and in a moment of rage and fear, John lashed out. Ava fell, hitting her head on the nightstand. Seeing her lifeless body, John realized the gravity of what he had done. "I didn't mean to kill her," John repeated, his voice breaking. "I just wanted to stop her from destroying our lives." Hunter listened, his heart heavy with the weight of John's confession. Ava's death was a tragic result of a web of lies and betrayals. The truth was finally out, but the pain and loss it caused could never be undone. Hunter knew that John would face justice for his actions, but the real challenge would be helping Jane and the rest of the community heal from this devastating ordeal. The truth had been uncovered, but its consequences would ripple through their lives for years to come. Detective Hunter left the interrogation room, the weight of John's confession heavy on his shoulders. The case had taken a toll on everyone involved, but he felt a grim sense of satisfaction knowing that the truth was finally out. Ava's death was no longer a mystery, and her killer would face justice. Hunter returned to his office and began piecing together the final report. He reviewed the evidence, the testimonies, and John's confession, ensuring everything was in order. As he worked, he couldn't help but reflect on the twists and turns of the investigation. He remembered the early days when Jane had been the prime suspect. Her grief-stricken state and the strained relationship with Ava had made her an easy target for suspicion. But as he delved deeper, he realized Jane's love for her daughter, despite their conflicts, was genuine and unwavering. John was found guilty of second-degree murder and sentenced to 25 years in prison. The verdict brought a sense of closure, but it was bittersweet. The community mourned Ava's loss, and the once respected John Matthews was now a pariah, his reputation irreparably tarnished. In the end, the story of Ava Matthews was one of sorrow, but also resilience and hope. It highlighted the fragile nature of human relationships and the profound impact of truth and justice. For Detective Hunter and the people of Riverwood, it was a testament to the enduring strength of the human spirit, even in the face of life's darkest moments. Laura Wilkie, a 35-year-old journalist, was known for her unwavering determination to expose corruption. Running her blog, Ocala After Dark, she fearlessly investigated local true crime stories and political figures, earning a reputation for her sharp wit and investigative prowess. Laura's infectious laughter and magnetic personality made her well-liked by those around her, and her free time was often spent painting landscapes or discovering the hidden gems of Ocala. During the hot summer of July 2007, Ocala was alive with excitement as the annual music festival, Ocala Jam Fest, brought music lovers from across the state together. Laura, ever in search of a captivating story, attended the festival, capturing the lively atmosphere and interviewing both up-and-coming and established bands. Her blog post about the event quickly gained attention from music enthusiasts and fellow journalists. However, Laura's true passion lay in exposing the city's darker side. She dug deep into the lives of local politicians, uncovering scandals and shining a light on their questionable dealings. Investigative pieces such as the mayor's hidden secrets and the dark side of Ocala's elite became the talk of the town. Her work was even featured on the front page of the Ocala Gazette, with the newspaper acknowledging her relentless pursuit of truth. Yet, Laura's determination came with consequences. She began receiving anonymous threats and warnings to back off from certain individuals. Despite the growing danger, Laura remained steadfast in her mission, convinced that the truth needed to be revealed. Her latest investigation involved a prominent car dealership owner, Jonathan Range Rover Reed, who was rumored to have ties to organized crime. Laura delved into his background, following a trail of suspicious transactions and connections that led her deeper into the dangerous underworld. Little did Laura know her relentless pursuit of justice would have dire consequences. On a sweltering July afternoon, she received a tip about a secret meeting between Reed and a corrupt city council member. Determined to capture the evidence, Laura set up surveillance near a local coffee shop, Brewed Awakening. As she discreetly snapped photographs, she had no idea that someone was poisoning her, eventually leaving her bedridden and finally dead. On the scorching morning of July 12, 2007, tragedy struck the quiet city of Ocala, Florida. At precisely 9 a.m., Jay Wilkie, the husband of renowned journalist Laura Wilkie, made a horrifying discovery that would forever change his life. The day had started like any other in the Wilkie household. The sun beat down mercilessly on the small suburban neighborhood as residents sought refuge in the coolness of their air-conditioned homes. But little did Jay know that this day would mark the beginning of a dark and perplexing chapter in his life. As Jay entered the bedroom, he was met with a sight that would haunt him for the rest of his days. There, lying motionless on the neatly made bed was Laura, his beloved wife. Her once vibrant eyes were now closed forever, and her body lay still as if frozen in time. The room was filled with an eerie silence, broken only by Jay's gasp of disbelief. The authorities were immediately summoned to the scene, their sirens piercing the otherwise tranquil neighborhood. As they meticulously combed through the room, searching for any clues that could shed light on this mysterious death, the air was thick with tension and uncertainty. In the days following Laura's untimely demise, the media frenzy surrounding the case reached a fever pitch. Headlines screamed with speculation, and armchair detectives dissected every detail, desperately trying to piece together the puzzle. News outlets like the Ocala Gazette and the Florida Times-Union dedicated countless column inches to the investigation as the city held its breath waiting for answers. As the investigation continued, the city of Ocala held its breath anxiously awaiting the day when the truth behind Laura Wilkie's death would finally be unveiled. But for now, the answers remained elusive, shrouded in a web of secrecy and unanswered questions. In the heart of Ocala, a city known for its picturesque landscapes and vibrant community, a shocking crime took place that would leave the town in a state of disbelief. Laura Wilkie, a respected journalist and fearless investigator, met a tragic end on the scorching morning of July 12, 2007. Detectives Olivia Gressel and Mark Haster, renowned for their meticulous approach to investigations, swiftly arrived at the scene. The Ocala Police Department was determined to solve this heinous crime and bring justice to Laura and her grieving loved ones. As they entered the house, a sense of eerie calm hung in the air. There were no signs of forced entry, suggesting that the killer had either been known to Laura or possessed a level of cunning that allowed them to gain access undetected. The detectives meticulously combed through every inch of the crime scene, searching for any clue that could shed light on Laura's untimely demise. The house appeared immaculately clean, as if someone had meticulously tidied up after the crime. However, their attention was soon drawn to the cause of death, poisoning. The exact substance used remained a mystery, leaving the investigators puzzled and determined to uncover the truth. With a keen eye for detail, the detectives photographed every inch of the crime scene, capturing potential DNA samples and any other evidence that could potentially lead them to the killer. They knew that in order to solve this perplexing case, they would need to leave no stone unturned. As the investigation unfolded, the town of Ocala was gripped with a sense of unease. The investigation into Laura Wilkie's murder would prove to be a complex puzzle, one that would challenge the detective skills and test their resolve. As the summer heat continued to bear down on Ocala, the search for the truth intensified, leaving the town anxiously awaiting the day when justice would finally be served. The initial focus of the investigation turned towards Jay Wilkie, a 49-year-old man who owned a flourishing gardening supply store in Ocala, Florida. Known for his friendly demeanor and charm, Jay was a familiar face in the community, often seen mingling with customers and offering expert advice on horticulture. However, beneath this amiable facade, there were whispers of a darker side. Detectives Olivia Gressel and Mark Haster, leading the investigation, delved into Jay's relationship with his wife, Laura, searching for any clues that could shed light on a possible motive. They meticulously pieced together the puzzle of their marriage, uncovering a history of turbulence and hidden tensions. Friends and acquaintances were interviewed, and a pattern of arguments and heated exchanges emerged. As the detectives delved deeper into Jay's personal life, they discovered a series of text messages exchanged between him and Laura in the weeks leading up to her tragic demise. The messages were from Laura begging Jay to not go near her, something that obviously indicated cracks in the foundation of their marriage. The detectives, determined to uncover the truth, obtained a warrant to search Jay's phone records, hoping to find more evidence that could connect him to Laura's murder. Simultaneously, the investigators scoured the city for any potential witnesses who may have seen or heard something on the day of the crime. They examined surveillance footage from nearby establishments, hoping to catch a glimpse of any suspicious individuals lurking in the vicinity of Laura's home. As the case gained media attention, tips flooded in from concerned citizens, each one meticulously followed up on by the diligent detectives. Days turned into weeks, and the investigation seemed to hit a dead end. The detectives meticulously reviewed every piece of evidence, re-examining the crime scene photographs and the DNA samples collected. They consulted with forensic experts, hoping for a breakthrough that would crack the case wide open. Despite the mounting pressure, Jay Wilkie vehemently maintained his innocence. He hired a high-profile defense attorney who spoke to the media on his behalf, proclaiming his client's unwavering belief that the truth would prevail. Clara Pointer, a 28-year-old co-worker and close friend of Laura Wilkie, emerged as a significant person of interest in the ongoing investigation into Laura's untimely death. Clara, like Laura, was a journalist, contributed articles for Laura's blog Ocala After Dark. She was known for her ambition and relentless pursuit of success. Mutual friends whispered about her burning desire to be the head of Ocala After Dark, the popular blog that Laura had built from the ground up. It was believed that Clara's envy of Laura's achievements may have fueled a sinister plot. During the police interrogation, Clara maintained an outwardly calm and collected demeanor, skillfully deflecting any suspicions that arose. She vehemently denied any involvement in Laura's murder, claiming that their friendship was genuine and that she had no reason to harm her colleague. Clara, for her part, pointed instead to Jay as the likely killer. She said Laura was deeply afraid of him, blaming him for the illness that led to her death. Clara said Laura repeatedly told her, "Don't let my husband near me. He wants me dead." However, the investigators uncovered some intriguing details that cast doubt on Clara's innocence. They have obtained surveillance footage from a nearby coffee shop showing Clara purchasing a bottle of a powerful sedative on the morning of July 12, 2007. The same sedative was found in Laura's system during the autopsy. This evidence, combined with Clara's undeniable ambition and rumored jealousy, raised eyebrows among the authorities. Furthermore, witnesses came forward claiming that Clara had been overheard making disparaging remarks about Laura's success. One witness who wished to remain anonymous reported hearing Clara say, "I should be the one in charge of Ocala After Dark. Laura doesn't deserve all the attention she's getting. Will Clara Pointer's carefully crafted facade crumble under the weight of the evidence against her? Or is there a hidden accomplice who remains undiscovered? Only time will tell as this gripping true crime case unravels before our eyes. A major breakthrough in the investigation of Laura Wilkie's murder occurred on the afternoon of July 17, 2007. The time was precisely 4 p.m., and the blistering heat of Ocala, Florida remained relentless. Detectives Olivia Gressel and Mark Haster stumbled upon a crucial piece of evidence that would send shock waves through the case. In their relentless pursuit of the truth, the detectives had been meticulously sifting through Laura's digital footprint. It was during this painstaking process that they unearthed a series of emails exchanged between Clara Pointer, a close friend and co-worker of Laura's, and David Yarborough, a private investigator renowned in the Ocala area. These emails provided a startling glimpse into the tangled web of deceit surrounding Laura's murder. Clara, it seemed, had been secretly seducing David to sabotage Laura's investigations. The content of the emails indicated that Laura had hired David to delve into the corrupt underbelly of Ocala's car dealership owner Jonathan Range Rover Reed, with Clara acting as the intermediary. The detectives were astounded by this revelation. It raised a multitude of questions. What had Laura uncovered that was so dangerous? Who were the individuals involved in this web of corruption? And most importantly, why was Laura targeted? The implications of these emails were far-reaching. They suggested a motive for Clara's potential involvement in Laura's murder. Was she driven by jealousy and a desire to take over Ocala after dark as rumors had suggested? Or was there something more sinister at play? As the investigation continued to unfold, the detectives were left with a myriad of unanswered questions. What other secrets lay hidden in the depths of Ocala's underbelly? And would they be able to bring Laura's killer to justice? The investigation took an unexpected turn on July 17, 2007 at around 4 p.m. when the Ocala police stumbled upon a series of emails exchanged between Clara Pointer, Laura Wilkie's co-worker and close friend, and David Yarborough, a private investigator hired by Laura to uncover corruption. These emails revealed a connection between Clara and David that raised eyebrows and left investigators scrambling to understand the implications. David Yarborough, a 45-year-old private investigator with a checkered past, had gained a reputation for his resourcefulness and determination in previous cases. He had been involved in Laura's high-profile corruption investigation, which had sent shockwaves through the local political scene. However, whispers began to circulate that David held a personal grudge against Laura for exposing his own misdeeds in the past. As the police interrogated David, his reaction was one of anger and frustration. He vehemently denied any involvement in Laura's murder, maintaining his innocence with unwavering conviction. The investigators delved into David's motives and connections to Clara, seeking to uncover any potential links that could shed light on the case. During the interrogation, David's past came under scrutiny. It was revealed that he had a history of working on high-stakes cases involving corruption and political scandals. Some of his previous clients included prominent figures in the local government, making him a well-known name in the realm of investigative journalism. However, as the investigation into Laura's murder unfolded, David's reputation began to crumble. The police dug deeper into David's personal life, interviewing his acquaintances and examining his financial records. They discovered that David had fallen on hard times in the months leading up to Laura's murder. He had been struggling to make ends meet with mounting debts and a desperate need for a big break. This revelation raised suspicions about his involvement in Laura's death and added fuel to the growing fire of speculation surrounding the case. As the investigation continued, the police were determined to uncover the truth behind Laura Wilkie's untimely demise. With each new piece of evidence, the web of suspects grew more intricate and the motives became murkier. The clock was ticking and the Ocala community held its breath, waiting for justice to prevail. In a shocking turn of events, the investigation into the untimely death of Laura Wilkie, the fearless journalist behind the renowned blog Ocala After Dark, took a sinister turn. After days of meticulous detective work, the police uncovered the true mastermind behind Laura's murder, Clara Pointer, a co-worker and friend who harbored a deep-seated jealousy and desire for power. Clara, a 28-year-old ambitious individual, had long coveted Laura's position as the head of Ocala after dark. Rumors of her envy and resentment towards Laura's success had been circulating for months, but no one could have fathomed the extent of Clara's treachery. The police's breakthrough in the case came on July 17, 2007, when a series of emails between Clara and David Yarborough, a private investigator hired by Laura, were discovered. These emails shed light on Clara's nefarious plans to seduce and manipulate David, who had developed an unhealthy sexual obsession with Laura. David, a 45-year-old private investigator with a checkered past, had a personal vendetta against Laura for exposing his previous misdeeds. However, his twisted infatuation with her led him to inadvertently aid Clara in her sinister plot. The investigation revealed that Clara had been secretly poisoning Laura's coffee for months, gradually weakening her. Laura's haunting words, "Don't let my husband near me. He wants me dead," were uttered in her delirium as Clara's poison took its toll. It is a chilling reminder of the depths of Clara's manipulation and the tragic fate that awaited Laura. But Clara's web of deceit did not end there. She had exploited both Laura's husband, Jay Wilkie, and David, utilizing her sexuality and their vulnerabilities to further her sinister agenda. Clara knew that Jay's troubled marriage and volatile temper would make him an easy target for suspicion. She carefully orchestrated the murder to frame him, all while maintaining her facade of innocence. As the investigation unfolded, the police pieced together Clara's manipulative tactics, exposing the extent of her exploitation. With the evidence against her mounting, the police moved in to arrest Clara at her apartment. Her calculated use of sexuality and the vulnerabilities of those around her showcased a level of cunning that is truly chilling. The trial that followed the shocking murder of Laura Wilkie was nothing short of a gripping spectacle. The courtroom was packed with eager spectators, eager to witness justice being served. District Attorney Unity Collins led the prosecution, presenting a compelling argument that left no room for doubt. She meticulously laid out the evidence, highlighting Clara Pointer's jealousy and calculated actions. The defense attorney, Esmeralda Constable, fought tooth and nail to cast doubt on the evidence and Clara's motives. She argued that the prosecution's case was built on circumstantial evidence and lacked a smoking gun. However, the weight of the evidence against Clara was overwhelming, leaving the defense with an uphill battle. The motions ran high as Laura's family took their seats in the courtroom. They had endured months of heartache and uncertainty, desperately seeking justice for their beloved daughter. The trial became a battleground of conflicting narratives, with the prosecution painting Clara as a manipulative mastermind and the defense attempting to humanize her, portraying her as a victim of circumstances. Throughout the trial, the jury listened intently to the testimonies of witnesses, examined the physical evidence, and reviewed the damning emails exchanged between Clara and the private investigator, David Yarborough. The emails revealed Clara's sinister plans and her attempts to manipulate both Jay Wilkie and David. After hours of deliberation, the jury delivered their unanimous verdict: guilty. Clara Pointer was found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to 25 years in prison without the possibility of parole. The courtroom erupted in a mix of relief and anguish as Laura's family and friends finally saw justice served. The impact of the trial rippled through the community, leaving a lasting impression on the residents of Ocala, Florida. The trial became the topic of conversations at local diners and coffee shops, with everyone weighing in on the verdict and its implications. As the trial came to a close, Laura's family and friends were left grappling with the aftermath. The wounds caused by her untimely demise would never fully heal, but the verdict brought them a sense of closure. They could finally begin the process of healing and moving forward, cherishing the memories of Laura and the impact she had on their lives. In the aftermath of the trial, life took on a new normal for all those involved. Jay Wilkie, Laura's husband, who had been falsely accused, felt a mix of relief and grief. He sought solace in rebuilding his life, focusing on his gardening supply store and reconnecting with friends and family. Jay found comfort in the support of the Ocala community, who rallied behind him during the trial. He became an advocate for justice reform, using his own experience to raise awareness about wrongful accusations. David Yarborough, the private investigator who had unwittingly aided Clara Pointer in her plot, was consumed by guilt. He dedicated himself to making amends for his misplaced loyalty. David reached out to Laura's family, offering his sincere apologies and assistance in any way he could. He embarked on a personal journey of redemption, vowing to use his investigative skills for good and help other victims of manipulation and deceit. As time passed, the wounds began to heal, but the memory of Laura Wilkie remained etched in the hearts of those who knew her. The trial had exposed the dark underbelly of jealousy and manipulation, but it also showcased the resilience of a community seeking justice. The impact of Laura's life and untimely death would forever serve as a reminder to cherish the truth and stand against those who seek to deceive.
Jessica itu kan kayak setan itu. Deep inside is something like the evil gitu.
Kasus kopi cyanida ini mungkin bisa dibandingkan dengan O.J. Simpson.
Harus saya buktikan kebenarannya.
Kasus ini terlalu banyak sisi dan terlalu banyak rumor. Ada rumor ada cinta segitiga antara Jessica, Mirna, dan juga suaminya. Ada kaitannya dengan mafia.
What makes one poison the other?
Kalau dia tidak bersalah, silakan bebaskan dia.
He is the killer.
On October 27, 2016, Indonesians had been eagerly anticipating the conclusion of a case that was dubbed the trial of the century, compared to a long-running TV drama with over 1 million viewers tuning in daily. The defendant, Jessica Kamala Wongso, a 28-year-old Australian resident of Indonesian heritage, was accused of poisoning her best friend by lacing her coffee with cyanide in broad daylight at an upscale cafe in central Jakarta. The case deeply divided Indonesian society. For the upper class, Jessica was innocent, a victim of a corrupt system. They believed she was framed, despite a lack of solid evidence. In contrast, the general public viewed her as a manipulative wealthy person attempting to evade a murder charge. Jessica's mysterious smiles and casual comments made many uneasy. Throughout the trial, she often smiled and seemed to enjoy the public's attention. Even at press conferences, she gave the impression of a game show winner rather than someone facing serious charges. Prosecutors were determined to seek the death penalty for Jessica. In the end, the judge convicted Jessica Wongso of murdering her friend, Wayan Myrna Salehin. How did their friendship deteriorate so much that Jessica would harm Myrna? Born in 1988 in Jakarta, Wayan Myrna Salehin was a stunningly beautiful and self-assured woman who attracted people to her. She came from a close-knit family and had a twin sister named Sandy. Supported by her family and surrounded by friends, Myrna was preparing for a joyful marriage. She was often the center of attention among her friends. While studying at Beauty Blue College in Australia, including a fellow student named Jessica Wongso, also an Indonesian international student and Myrna's closest friend during their university days, Jessica was born into an ultra-wealthy family in Jakarta. Her family owned a major plastic importing business, reputedly the largest distributor in Australia, leading many to call her father the Plastic King. However, in an interview, her mother refuted this claim. Her parents moved to Sydney in 2005, living in the luxurious suburb of Double Bay, while Jessica stayed behind in Jakarta to finish high school, living with a housekeeper. Both women led intriguing lives. They shared common backgrounds as Indonesians from the upper class who attended expensive international schools in Jakarta. Now they were studying abroad together. Their lives had many similarities, but the key difference between them was their personalities. Myrna was extremely sociable, whereas Jessica was more reserved and introverted. University friends noted that Jessica was not the type to easily make friends with everyone. So when she did make a friend, she was very diligent about maintaining that friendship. Alongside Myrna and Jessica, their close-knit group included 2 other girls, Hani and Vera, also from Indonesia. The 4 women from Jakarta enjoyed an active social life in Sydney, attending lectures by day and partying by night. Everything changed after they graduated. Each had their own plans and personal lives to lead. Myrna became engaged to her boyfriend, Arif Swemaku, who had also lived in Australia, and planned to return to Indonesia to start her career and a family with Arif. Both Hani and Vera eventually moved back to Indonesia. Jessica became an Australian resident and stayed in Sydney where her family lived, thus temporarily parting ways with her friends for quite a long period. 1 month prior to the day of the murder, Jessica and her friends had set up a WhatsApp group before Jessica left Sydney to fly back to Jakarta. From this chat group, the girls organized a meetup at a cafe named Olivier, a high-end venue frequented by Jakarta's elite located within the Grand Indonesia Shopping Center. On January 6, 2016, in this chat, Myrna expressed her fondness for Vietnamese iced coffee available at Olivier, unaware that it would soon be used as a weapon to end her life. The girls arranged to meet at 5 p.m. Security cameras at the cafe captured Jessica, arriving early at 3:30 p.m. She walked around, surveying the cafe briefly, before leaving 2 minutes later. At this point, Jessica texted her friends to inform them that she had arrived. She returned at 4:14 p.m. with 3 large bags, purportedly gifts for her friends, and began ordering drinks. She ordered 2 cocktails and 1 Vietnamese iced coffee, then chose table number 54 in a non-smoking area. This table had a large half-moon-shaped sofa behind it, flanked by tall plants that significantly obstructed the camera's view from behind. As Jessica approached, she placed the 3 large bags on the table, effectively blocking the view of the front camera, making it impossible to see anything on the table. At 4:24 p.m., the drinks were served to Jessica, and she notified her friends that she had ordered. About 10 minutes later, it is believed that she then added cyanide to Myrna's coffee based on security footage. At 5:16 p.m., Myrna arrived with Hanny, and after a brief stop at the reception, they were directed to Jessica's waiting table. The girls reunited with hugs and quickly sat down. Myrna was seated in the middle with Jessica and Hanny on either side. By this time, the drinks were already on the table. Jessica told Myrna that the iced coffee was hers, as Myrna had previously mentioned liking it. Shortly after, Myrna took a sip of her melting iced coffee and immediately sensed something was off. She set the coffee down and remarked to both Jessica and Hanny that the coffee was terrible. Myrna then asked Hanny to taste it. Hanny only sniffed the coffee, agreeing with Myrna that it had a bitter and very strong taste. Myrna also turned to Jessica, suggesting she try it, but Jessica declined. The coffee remained untouched as the girls, bewildered, tried to understand what had just happened. Myrna began waving her hands in front of her face as if she had smelled something extremely unpleasant and suddenly collapsed backwards. She began convulsing and foaming at the mouth, sending the surroundings into a state of panic. The waitstaff and the manager, Devi Sayarjian, rushed to assist Myrna and Hanny, but Jessica alone remained silent and inactive, offering no aid to her friend. At that moment, Devi Sayarjian thought Myrna was having an epileptic seizure. She ordered her staff to call an ambulance and bring oxygen to help, but she was startled when Jessica, who was standing nearby, stepped closer and asked, "What did you put in Myrna's coffee?" This comment immediately aroused Sayarjian's suspicion, as it was the first time such a life-threatening incident related to a beverage had occurred at Olivier. Shajin immediately instructed the staff to retain the coffee cup and seal it for investigation. Following this, Devi Shajin and a barista named Ranga Saputro examined the coffee and confirmed that Myrna's drink was no longer just a normal cup of coffee. Hanny then called Ref to inform him of Myrna's critical condition. Ref was shocked and hurried to the hospital where the ambulance had taken Myrna, located in central Jakarta. By the time Myrna was admitted, she had already passed away, and despite the doctor's desperate efforts, nothing could be changed. Myrna Salihin was declared dead at 6:30 p.m. on January 6, 2016. Myrna's family and friends were completely shocked, unable to comprehend how she could die so suddenly. Upon learning about her final moments, suspicion immediately fell on Jessica. Yet it was hard to believe that a close friend, a woman of the upper class with high education like Jessica, could truly be the perpetrator of such a crime, committed in broad daylight at a crowded place. Following the declaration of her death, Myrna's body remained at the hospital. It was not until January 9, 2016 that her family moved her from the hospital to a funeral home. However, the police unexpectedly intervened, requesting the family's permission to conduct an autopsy. Initially, Myrna's family resisted, unwilling to permit any potential damage to her body. But ultimately, they conceded when the police expressed suspicion that Myrna's death was likely due to poisoning, and that without an autopsy, the perpetrator would remain unknown. By the early hours of January 10, 2016, Myrna's body was returned to her family, and the funeral proceedings resumed. The police released autopsy results showing a small amount of 0 intimal ladders of cyanide in Myrna's stomach. They concluded that she had been poisoned. Furthermore, tests on the coffee cup revealed a substantial amount of the toxin, nearly 300 milligrams of cyanide, enough to kill an average person. Additionally, Jessica appeared neither panicked nor attempted to assist Myrna as she became unconscious. Consequently, the police began investigating Jessica, making her the prime suspect in the case. After a period of investigation, on January 30, 2016, police arrested Jessica at a hotel in North Jakarta, charging her with premeditated murder, potentially facing the death penalty. For those unaware, cyanide is among the deadliest poisons, commonly found in natural foods like cassava and bamboo shoots. Upon exposure, cyanide enters the bloodstream and prevents cells from absorbing oxygen. This blockage causes unassimilated oxygen to flood the blood, turning the skin cherry red, while the organs fail to receive oxygen, leading to organ failure, convulsions, coma, and ultimately death. What drove Jessica Kumar Wongso? As the police investigation into Jessica intensified, so did media interest in the case, catapulting what would have been a routine criminal affair into the spotlight. This made it a daily fixture on Indonesian television, but the most baffling aspect remained Jessica's motive for murder. Lacking a clear explanation, people began to speculate about the fractures in the friendship between the two women, Myrna and Jessica. The situation deteriorated around October 2014, when Myrna visited Sydney for a vacation and informed Jessica about her trip. The two arranged to have dinner, expected to be a joyful reunion of close friends, but it was not to be. During the meal, Myrna suggested that Jessica should break up with her Australian boyfriend, Patrick O'Connor, whom she believed was a waste of Jessica's time. Patrick was known to be a drug addict and frequently violent, posing a serious risk to Jessica. Myrna, known for her forthrightness, perhaps spoke too harshly, causing considerable discomfort to Jessica. Throughout the conversation, Jessica remained silent, and once Myrna finished speaking, Jessica simply stood up from the table and left Myrna alone in the restaurant without a word of farewell. After dinner, Myrna's discomfort with Jessica grew. She told her fiancé, Arjef, whom she had not yet married, that she no longer wished to meet Jessica alone. If future meetings were to happen, Myrna insisted on having Arif or one of their mutual friends, Haney or Vera, accompany her. However, as Myrna and Jessica were residing in different countries, their communication dwindled. It seems that after that meeting, Jessica began to exhibit bizarre and worrying behavior. Throughout 2015, Jessica was hospitalized 5 times, following unsuccessful attempts at suicide and self-harm. In August, she drove while intoxicated and crashed into a nursing home in Sydney. She was subsequently hospitalized with a fractured rib and several chest injuries. Approximately 2 months later, Jessica's boyfriend, Patrick, called the police to report that Jessica had attempted to poison herself with carbon monoxide from a barbecue in her bedroom, but fortunately, she survived unscathed. 2 weeks later, police were called to Jessica's apartment again. This time, they found an empty bottle of whiskey next to her bed along with several letters. One letter claimed that Patrick O'Connor was responsible for her death. Other letters addressed to her family and employer included confidential contents. By the end of November, Patrick had endured enough. He sought a restraining order against Jessica. He claimed she had sent him numerous voice messages and texts threatening to harm herself and had been harassing his friends and family. Considering the severity of Jessica's actions, the police granted Patrick an emergency protective order. Jessica was due to face trial in Sydney in February 2017 for drink driving. Her troubles compounded as she was dismissed from her job as a graphic designer at New South Wales Ambulance, where she had worked for a considerable time post-graduation. In these trying times, Jessica decided to return to Jakarta to start afresh. Before leaving, she set up a WhatsApp group with her friends. Jessica sent the first message on December 5, 2015, before departing Sydney. A few days later, Myrna responded, and Jessica arranged a meeting which Myrna agreed to attend. On December 12, 2015, Myrna and her newlywed husband, Arif, joined Jessica for dinner at a restaurant in North Jakarta. They had recently celebrated a lavish wedding in Bali. The dinner went smoothly, although Jessica mentioned it was the first time she had heard about Myrna and Arif's wedding. Previously, Myrna had become more cautious around Jessica and had decided not to invite her to the wedding. This may have made the dinner conversation somewhat awkward. Although not much is known about that evening, the people of Indonesia and the prosecutors at Jessica's trial believed that Jessica felt angry and jealous of Myrna's prosperous life, leading her to plan the murder of her friend. They were convinced that Jessica was the perpetrator and sought justice for Myrna. However, many contradictions arose during the trial, complicating the case and prolonging it for months. The trial of Jessica Kumar Wongso. After a prolonged period of detention, the trial of Jessica Kumar Wongso commenced on June 15, 2016 and spanned over 4 months due to discrepancies in testimonies and evidence concerning her role as the perpetrator. Jessica's family retained the services of Otto Hasibuan, a renowned and seasoned lawyer in Indonesia, to defend her. A pivotal aspect of the case was the cause of death by cyanide poisoning. However, the incomplete autopsy on Myrna created significant challenges in reaching a judicial conclusion. Dr. Slamet Purnomo, who was responsible for the autopsy, reported finding a mere 0.2 of cyanide in Myrna's stomach, detected 3 days post-mortem. The hospital had not conducted a full autopsy at the request of the police. The prosecution explained that at that time in Indonesia, there was immense respect for the deceased's handling, and a full autopsy, which involves dissection from head to toe, could compromise the body's integrity, hence a recurring parental consent. Myrna's parents did not authorize a complete autopsy, allowing only for samplers to be taken. A documentary released last year by Netflix included a letter from the police requesting a full autopsy on Myrna's body and recording the testimony. The defense then brought forward medical experts to testify that Myrna's death was not due to cyanide poisoning, stating that the lethal dose ranges between 50–176 mg. Thus, the 200,000 found was insufficient to cause death. The first forensic witness, Dr. Jaja Surya Atmarja, a medical doctor and forensic pathology researcher, as well as a senior lecturer at the University of Indonesia in Jakarta, asserted in court that without examining all internal organs, it was impossible to determine the exact cause of death since other potential causes such as stroke or heart and lung-related diseases could not be ruled out. Dr. Jajasuriya Atmaja also reiterated the importance of autopsies in establishing the basis for conclusions in suspicious death cases during a discussion with medical professionals. Another expert, Professor Bong Bong Ong, a toxicologist invited from Australia, confirmed that the claim of death by cyanide was unfounded and urged consideration of other natural causes. The prosecution attempted to discredit Bang Bang Ong by accusing him of abusing his tourist visa. Subsequently, Ong was expelled from Indonesia and banned from entry for 6 months, rendering his testimonies ineffective and dismissed. However, it was noted that in 2002, Bang Bang Ong was invited to Indonesia to help identify victims of the first Bali bombing, while on a tourist visa as well. This raised suspicions about whether the prosecutors and judges were truly upholding justice or merely striving to legally incriminate Jessica. In the trial, Dr. Jaja Surya Atmaja testified that he was the first doctor to see Myrna's body 2 hours after her death. At that time, her face was blue, whereas individuals who die from cyanide poisoning typically exhibit red discoloration. He further asserted that there was no trace of cyanide in Myrna's stomach fluid, liver bile, or urine when the autopsy was conducted, 70 minutes post-mortem. Dr. Atmaj also suggested that the detected dying 2 milliliters of cyanide could have been a result of embalming chemicals. Following the revelation about Myrna's blue complexion, her family swiftly provided photos showing her face as red, taken on the day of her funeral. However, this evidence was dismissed by the court. Proving Jessica's guilt or innocence became exceedingly difficult due to the absence of direct evidence linking her to the crime. Her defense attorney, Otto Hasibuan, argued that the prosecution failed to present a coherent narrative in their indictment. They did not clarify how Jessica could have obtained the cyanide where she stored it in the cafe, or produce any footage showing Jessica actually administering the cyanide to Myrna's coffee. Furthermore, the crucial piece of evidence, Myrna's coffee cup, was not properly sealed, and no records were kept about this key evidence in the case file. After being handed over to the police, the contents of the coffee cup were transferred to another container without any record of the time, method, or witnesses to this unsealing, as previously claimed. The arguments presented by Hasibuan and Jessica's defense team led many to shift their support towards Jessica, believing she was not the culprit. Yet, this did not prompt a more thorough review of the case. The prosecutors and judges struggled to find direct evidence to convict Jessica. Consequently, they resorted to using circumstantial evidence. One such piece of evidence was Jessica's alleged study of the cafe's security cameras. Prosecutors accused her of having scoped out the cafe's layout and being aware of the security camera placements. Later, she left and visited a bath and body works store within the same shopping center as Olivier and purchased 3 types of bath salts, asking the staff to pack them in 3 large bags. This led to the second piece of circumstantial evidence regarding Jessica's placement of the bags. A psychologist named Antonia noted that Jessica's behavior while waiting for her friends was unusual. Typically, when people enter a restaurant, they place their belongings beside them, especially if adjacent seats are empty. However, Jessica placed the 3 paper bags on the table before arranging them, with the ordered drinks positioned behind these bags. Next were Jessica's suspicious actions. At 4:29 p.m., she opened her handbag with both hands, her head constantly turning left and right, as if monitoring the movements captured by the security camera. She appeared to place something on the table, an act pointed out by expert Mohammed Na El Azza. The fourth point of concern was Jessica's refusal to taste the coffee after Myrna took a sip and remarked that it tasted awful, urging Jessica to try it, but Jessica declined. The fifth detail was Jessica's scratching her thigh. At around 5:23 p.m., while the staff at Olivier were attempting to assist Myrna in an emergency, Jessica simply stood there, continuously rubbing and scratching her palm as she held her handbag, and then proceeded to rub her right thigh. Suspicion towards Jessica heightened when it was discovered that she had instructed her housekeeper to dispose of the trousers she wore that day. Later, her mother told the press that the trousers were thrown away because they were torn. The most crucial piece of evidence emerged regarding Jessica's mental health instability. Indonesian police requested collaboration with Australian police to investigate Jessica's life in Australia. The Australian police agreed once it was assured that Jessica would not face the death penalty. Subsequently, they reported several incidents related to Jessica's adverse behaviors, including intentions of homicide, suicide, and threats of self-harm. Indonesian police also conducted a 9-hour interview with Jessica's supervisor at New South Wales, where she had previously worked. The supervisor, Christy Carter, acknowledged that Jessica was capable of causing harm or even killing someone. During a hospital recovery visit after one of Jessica's suicide attempts, Christy visited Jessica, who confessed that if she wanted to kill someone, she knew how to do it. She was familiar with using guns and the correct dosages of poison necessary to act. Just 2 months before the murder took place, Jessica had threatened that Christy and her mother must die. With reports detailing Jessica's troubled life in Sydney presented in court, perhaps the clearest revelation emerged about the perilous nature hidden behind Jessica's smile. Several psychologists involved in the case described Jessica as a manipulative and self-centered individual. However, details about her life and relationships prior to these events remain scant, casting a shadow over her true character. Consequently, Jessica was found guilty of murdering her friend, Myrna Salihin, and sentenced to 20 years in prison. Despite this, Jessica's defense team steadfastly maintained her innocence, unable to alter the verdict once it was delivered. The case reached its conclusion. Subsequently, Jessica and her lawyer made multiple appeals, all of which were rejected by the Supreme Court. Even attempts to interview Jessica in prison later were denied. To date, Jessica has served over 7 years in prison, continuing to assert her innocence. Recent updates revealed that Odo Hasibuan proposed to Jessica that he could arrange for her release by convincing the president of Indonesia, provided she confessed to the crime. Jessica firmly refused, insisting she would not admit to something she hadn't done. The complexity of the case has left many questions unresolved. At the same time, several theories circulated among the Indonesian public. One theory suggested that Jessica had been framed by the police team handling the investigation. This theory gained momentum, especially after Ferdi Sambo, a former high-ranking national police officer known for fabricating evidence in past cases, was sentenced to life imprisonment in 2023 for orchestrating a murder to appear as a shootout. This raised doubts about the integrity of the case, due to inconsistencies in autopsy times and the handling of evidence, such as the coffee cup. A more widely held theory posits that either Myrna's father or husband orchestrated her murder to collect over $5 million in life insurance. This hypothesis gained traction amid significant public scrutiny and was bolstered by media reports. Before the trial, Devi Sayajian, Rangga Saputro, and Myrna's father allegedly met privately to coordinate their testimonies about the case. Though Devi Sayajian and Rangga could recount the details of the case to the police, they claimed to have forgotten the meeting with Myrna's father. Additionally, during the trial, lawyer Otto Hasibuan alleged that Rangga was seen receiving a black bag from RAF just before the murder took place. This brings us to the conclusion of the infamous 2016 coffee cup poisoning case in Indonesia. Vicky Davis Goderbye was a 28-year-old marketing executive known for her quick wit and magnetic personality, which made her effortlessly draw people to her. Her ambition was clear in her unwavering dedication to her career, often working long hours to rise through the corporate ranks. Despite her professional success, her personal life remained veiled in secrecy. The classic Southern rumor mill in Charleston, South Carolina, buzzed with tales of Vicky's alleged sexual involvement with multiple men, including a married man and even a high school student. These rumors, fueled by gossip at church gatherings and iced tea socials, painted a complex picture of a woman caught in a web of affairs and scandal. The relentless chatter only added to the mystery surrounding Vicky. September of 1998 was a turbulent time for Charleston, still reeling from the devastation of Hurricane Bonnie, which had struck just weeks earlier. The hurricane had caused extensive damage, leaving many residents displaced and struggling to rebuild. Amid this backdrop of recovery and resilience, the shocking murder of Vicky Davis Goderbye took place. As we explore this case, we will delve into the lives of those closest to Vicky, including her husband and mother-in-law, both of whom would play central roles in the chilling events that followed. We will examine the evidence, witnesses, and motives behind this brutal crime. Join us as we navigate the twists and turns of this true crime story that captivated the community of Charleston, South Carolina. On that fateful day in September 1998, a quiet, affluent neighborhood in Charleston was shattered by a brutal crime that would forever haunt its residents. The victim, Vicky Davis Goderbye, a 28-year-old marketing executive, met a tragic end in her own bedroom, the scene of a horrific act that sent shockwaves through the community. Vicky was a woman of ambition, known for her quick wit and charismatic personality. Her dedication to her career was unmatched, often working late into the night to climb the corporate ladder. However, behind her professional achievements, whispers of a controversial personal life added an unsettling layer to the case. Rumors circulated about Vicky's alleged involvement with multiple men, including a married individual and even a high school student. These whispers fueled speculation and cast a shadow over her reputation. The discovery of Vicky's lifeless body sent shock waves through the affluent neighborhood. The crime scene was a chilling sight with blood stains and signs of a violent struggle. The murder weapon, a baseball bat, added a horrifying twist to the already perplexing case. The residents accustomed to a life of comfort and security were left in a state of disbelief. News of the murders spread like wildfire, capturing the attention of the local media. The community, once shielded by its genteel, classically Southern affluence, found itself thrust into the spotlight as the investigation unfolded. September 1998 became a month etched in the memories of Charleston's residents. The murder of Vicky Davis Goderbye had shattered their sense of security, forcing them to confront the darkness that lurked beneath the surface. It was a crime that demanded answers, and the community rallied together determined to find justice for Vicky. A quiet neighborhood of Charleston, South Carolina was shattered by the gruesome murder of 28-year-old marketing executive Vicki Davis Goiterby in September of 1998. The police, led by the tenacious detective Sean Trash Talk, really wasted no time in their pursuit of justice. Upon arriving at the crime scene, the investigators were met with a chilling sight. Vicki's bedroom, once a place of comfort and solace, had been transformed into a scene of unspeakable violence. Blood splatters adorned the walls, starkly contrasting with the elegant decor that surrounded them. The air was heavy with a sense of dread as the investigators began their meticulous examination. The murder weapon, a baseball bat adorned with the logo of the Florida Marlins, lay discarded near Vicki's lifeless body. Its wooden surface was stained with her blood, a grim reminder of the brutality she had endured. Detective really carefully collected the bat, hoping it would provide crucial clues to unravel this heinous crime. As the investigation unfolded, the police discovered that Vicki's personal life was far from ordinary. Rumors had swirled about her involvement with multiple men, including a married man and even a high school student. These revelations added a layer of complexity to the case, leaving the investigators to question whether her sex life played a role in her tragic demise. Detective Rell and his team meticulously combed through Vicki's personal belongings, searching for any evidence that could shed light on her murder. They meticulously examined her phone records, revealing a series of cryptic messages and calls from unknown numbers. The investigators reached out to the phone company, hoping to trace the origins of these mysterious communications. Meanwhile, local media outlets began to take notice of the high-profile case. The community was gripped by fear, with residents locking their doors and looking over their shoulders, unsure if the killer lurked among them. As the investigation continued, Detective Reilly and his team tirelessly pursued every lead, determined to bring justice to Vicki and her grieving family. Their efforts would uncover a web of deceit, betrayal, and secrets that would shock the community to its core. Evelyn Trelline Goiterby, a 63-year-old woman of Southern charm and impeccable manners, found herself at the center of the investigation into Vicki Davis Goiterby's murder. Evelyn, known for her old money background and esteemed reputation, had always presented herself as a pillar of the community. However, beneath her polished exterior, a deep-seated resentment towards her daughter-in-law simmered. The motive for Evelyn's potential involvement in the crime stemmed from her concern for the family's legacy. Vicki's decision not to have children was seen as a threat to the Goiterby name, a name that had long been associated with wealth and influence in Charleston, South Carolina. The tension between the two women had been building for months, with Evelyn feeling increasingly marginalized by Vicki's success and independence. As the police interrogated Evelyn, her emotions swung from anger to denial. She vehemently refuted any involvement in the murder, insisting that she had no reason to harm Vicki. However, the mounting evidence against her was difficult to ignore. Detective Sean Trash Talk, really the lead investigator on the case, meticulously pieced together the puzzle. He discovered that Evelyn, a baseball fan, had been in possession of a baseball bat similar to the murder weapon. This discovery raised suspicions and pointed towards Evelyn's possible guilt. Furthermore, Reilly uncovered a series of anonymous letters sent to Vicki in the months leading up to her death. These letters contained veiled threats and warnings, suggesting that someone close to her had ill intentions. Handwriting analysis revealed similarities between the anonymous letters and Evelyn's own penmanship. The investigation took a dramatic turn when a neighbor recalled seeing Evelyn's convertible parked near Vicki's house on the day of the murder. This eyewitness account provided a crucial link between Evelyn and the crime scene. As the evidence stacked against her, Evelyn's facade of Southern charm began to crumble. The affluent neighborhoods of Charleston were left in a state of shock, grappling with the realization that darkness can lurk even within the most seemingly idyllic communities. As the investigation into the murder of Vicki Davis Goiterby unfolded, the spotlight turned towards her husband, Greg Goiterby, a successful patent lawyer. Greg, known for his charm and ambition, had always been deeply devoted to his family's reputation. However, the police began to uncover disturbing details that raised questions about his involvement in this heinous crime. One key point of contention was Vicki's decision not to have children. This had been a source of frequent arguments between the couple, leading investigators to explore whether it played a role in the motive behind the murder. The pressure to carry on the family legacy weighed heavily on Greg's shoulders, and it became evident that he saw Vicky's choice as a threat to their future. During the intense police interrogation, Greg's emotions ran high. His responses ranged from anger to defensiveness as he vehemently denied any involvement in his wife's murder. He insisted that he loved Vicky deeply and would never harm her. However, the detectives were not convinced and continued to dig deeper. One crucial piece of evidence that emerged was a series of text messages between Greg and an unidentified woman. These messages vaguely hinted at a secret affair, throwing a new twist into the investigation. The detectives painstakingly analyzed the messages, searching for any clues that could shed light on the motive behind Vicky's murder. Later, the case took a dramatic turn when a new witness came forward. A neighbor reported seeing a suspicious figure lurking near Vicky's house on the night of the murder. This crucial eyewitness account provided a glimmer of hope for the investigators as it offered a potential break in the case. As the investigation continued, the detectives worked tirelessly to gather enough evidence to bring the killer to justice. The truth behind Vicky's murder remained elusive, but the pieces of the puzzle were slowly falling into place. The investigation into the murder of Vicky Davis Goiterby took an unexpected turn when a crucial piece of evidence was unearthed. On a humid and sultry September afternoon, a beachcomber stumbled upon a hidden compartment concealed within a weathered wooden chest buried deep in the sand. To the beachcomber's surprise, the compartment contained a worn diary belonging to the late marketing executive. This diary, which had remained concealed for over 2 weeks, would prove to be a treasure trove of secrets and revelations. As the pages were carefully turned, the shocking truth unfolded before the eyes of the investigators. Vicky's diary chronicled a clandestine world of secret liaisons and forbidden desires, exposing a web of a dozen men Vicky was having sex with at the time of her death. The entries in the diary depicted a life far removed from the polished facade Vicky had presented to the world. Names were mentioned, many of them recognizable figures from the local community. The diary hinted at a married man, a deacon of a local megachurch, a high school student, several men at the local senior center, and even a prominent politician who had been a frequent visitor to the affluent neighborhoods Charleston, South Carolina. The investigators were astounded by the breadth and audacity of Vicky's secret life. The diary entries painted a vivid picture of a woman who reveled in the thrill of forbidden relationships and outre sexual acts, seemingly unconcerned with the potential consequences. The revelation sent shock waves through the community with whispers and speculation spreading like wildfire. As the investigation continued, the police found themselves faced with a daunting task. The diary had opened up a multitude of new leads and suspects, each with their own potential motive for wanting Vicky silenced. The investigators meticulously combed through the diary's pages, cross-referencing names and dates with their existing evidence. The investigators knew that they were now on the brink of unraveling the truth, but little did they know the twists and turns that still lay ahead. In the gripping investigation into the murder of Vicky Davis Goiterby, a shocking twist emerged that sent shockwaves through the affluent neighborhoods of Charleston, South Carolina in September of 1998. As the police dug deeper into the case, a new suspect emerged, casting doubt on the initial focus of the investigation. Amber Smythe, Vicky's envious secretary, became a person of interest due to her simmering resentment and a trail of secrets that led investigators down a twisted path. Amber, known for her sharp tongue and ruthless ambition, had long harbored jealousy towards Vicky's success and glamorous lifestyle. The police, determined to uncover the truth, delved into Amber's possible motives for murder. During the intense interrogation, Amber's anger and resentment towards Vicky were palpable. However, she vehemently denied any involvement in the crime. As the investigators pressed further, a startling revelation came to light. It was discovered that Amber, under the alias Vanessa Dracula, had been working as a call girl to make ends meet. This was not an uncommon choice. According to the American Center for Family Relationships, 40% of women in their 20s have turned to sex work for extra money. Even more shocking, one of her regular clients was none other than Greg Goiterby, Vicky's husband. According to Amber, Greg was looking to have a child with her. then he would adopt the child to be his heir. This revelation sent shock waves through the investigation. The police began to question the nature of Greg and Amber's relationship and whether it played a role in Vicky's untimely demise. Was Greg's involvement with Amber a motive for murder? Did Amber's jealousy and rage push her to commit such a heinous act? The police meticulously combed through phone records and interviewed witnesses, hoping to uncover the truth. They sought to piece together the puzzle of Vicky's secret sex life, her relationship with Greg, and the possible involvement of Amber. The case took on a life of its own, captivating the public's imagination and leaving them hungry for answers. In a shocking twist, the true identity of the murderer in the high-profile Charleston murder case was revealed. Evelyn Trauline Goiterby, the unsuspecting mother-in-law of the victim, Vicky Davis Goiterby, was arrested and charged with the brutal killing. This stunning revelation sent shock waves through the community and left many questioning how such a tragic event could have unfolded. The motive behind this heinous act was uncovered during the course of the investigation. It appeared that Evelyn, driven by a toxic combination of jealousy, confusion, and pride for her son, Greg, hatched a twisted plan to protect her family's reputation at all costs. On that fateful day in September of 1998, Evelyn, suffering from undiagnosed dementia, mistook Vicky for Amber Smythe, Vicky's secretary, part-time call girl, and her son's lover. In a moment of confusion and rage, Evelyn unleashed a brutal attack on Vicky, beating her to death with a Florida Marlins baseball bat. Sadly, this situation is not at all uncommon. According to the American Academy of Medicine and Criminal Justice, 18% of all murders in the U.S. are committed by someone with dementia. This tragic case of mistaken identity left investigators and the community reeling with disbelief. As news of Evelyn's arrest spread, the community was left grappling with a mix of relief and disbelief. The Goiterby family, once regarded as pillars of the community, now finds themselves at the center of a scandal that has tarnished their reputation. The highly anticipated trial of Evelyn Trauline Goiterby, the prime suspect in the murder of Vicky Davis Goiterby, captivated the city of Charleston in October of 1999. District Attorney Lars Constable led the prosecution, while defense attorney Harry Huxtable fought to cast doubt on the evidence. The courtroom was packed with spectators eager to witness the unfolding drama. The prosecution presented a compelling case against Evelyn, meticulously outlining the evidence that pointed to her guilt. They showcased the blood-stained baseball bat, the murder weapon that was found near the crime scene. Expert witnesses testified about the DNA analysis that linked Evelyn to the bat. The jury listened intently as the prosecution painted a vivid picture of a calculated and premeditated murder. The defense, on the other hand, sought to create doubt in the minds of the jurors. They questioned the reliability of the DNA evidence, suggesting that it could have been contaminated or mishandled. They also called witnesses who testified to Evelyn's character, painting her as a loving and caring mother who would never commit such a heinous act. The defense argued that the real killer was still at large and that Evelyn was being wrongfully accused. Throughout the trial, the victim's family sat in the courtroom, their emotions palpable. They endured the painful process of reliving their loss as the details of Vicky's brutal murder were recounted. The family's grief was compounded by the shocking revelation that the murder was a case of mistaken identity. Evelyn, suffering from dementia, had tragically killed Vicky, mistaking her for Amber Smythe, her son's lover. As the trial reached its climax, the jury retired to deliberate. The city held its breath, awaiting their decision. After hours of deliberation, the jury returned with a guilty verdict. The courtroom erupted in a mix of emotions, with some expressing relief that justice had been served, while others questioned whether the death penalty was the appropriate punishment. In the end, the trial of Evelyn Goiterby served as a stark reminder of the fragility of life and the devastating consequences of unchecked emotions. It left the city grappling with questions of justice and the complexities of the human psyche. In the aftermath of the trial, the lives of all those involved took unexpected turns. Evelyn Trauline Goiterby, now incarcerated at the Charleston Correctional Facility, grappled with the consequences of her actions. The once prestigious Goiterby family, known for their old money Southern charm, was now tarnished by the dark cloud of murder. Their mansion, a symbol of wealth and privilege, stood empty and abandoned. a stark reminder of the tragedy that unfolded within its walls. Greg Guterby, burdened by the weight of his mother's crimes, sought solace and therapy to confront his own demons. He struggled to come to terms with the fact that his own mother had taken the life of his wife, Vicki Davis Gotterby. Greg, once a successful patent lawyer, found his career in shambles as his reputation became entangled with the scandals surrounding his family. He sought refuge in the arms of Amber Smythe, Vicki's former secretary and his secret lover. The two eventually married, had 3 children, and settled into a modest home in Helena, Montana, far removed from the southern opulence they once knew. The victim's family, devastated by the loss of their beloved Vicki, slowly began to rebuild their shattered lives. They found comfort in the support of their community, which rallied around them during their darkest moments. The local church held a memorial service in Vicki's honor, where friends and family gathered to share stories and memories of the vibrant young woman whose life was tragically cut short. The investigation and subsequent trial left an enduring impact on the community of Charleston. The case captivated the media's attention, with newspapers and television stations covering every twist and turn of the trial. The local news station, WCBD Channel 2, dedicated a nightly segment to the trial, offering updates on the proceedings and interviews with key figures involved in the case. The trial became the talk of the town, with residents discussing the latest developments over cups of coffee at the local diner, Joe's Cafe. As the years went by, the memory of Vicki Davis Gotterby began to fade. The Charleston Correctional Facility, once a center of activity during the trial, returned to its usual routine. The Gotterby Mansion, now a faded relic of the past, stood as a reminder of the darkness that can exist behind closed doors. Thanks for diving into another mystery with us. If you enjoyed unraveling the clues and chasing the truth, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give us a thumbs up. Your support helps us bring you more thrilling cases and deep dives into the unknown.